Okay, this form is going to be on handling objections. Objections are a natural part of the selling process. I personally prefer to view an objection as an invitation, because that's all an objection is, an invitation to properly explain your product and overcome whatever obstacle that's standing between you and that prospective client. However, objections can be one of the most stressful and demoralizing hazards of being an inside salesperson. Okay, facing daily rejection can drive down your morale. It can cause you to not want to pick up the phone, and of course we talked about picking up the phone on the last hangout Tuesday. But there's nothing that can demotivate you more quickly than hearing the "Who's calling? I'm sorry, he's not in." Or how about the "I get 4 or 5 calls from collection agencies every week. What makes you any different?" Or "I'm not interested." Just with no objection at all. Just "I'm not interested." Look, how many of you have got "I'm not interested"? And then you hear that. Man, that drives me nuts. I usually call them back and say, "I believe we got disconnected. I apologize. My phone has been acting up all day." Usually they get mad when I do that, but for me it's fun. You know, it's like playing the game. Or, you know, we get the "I'm too busy to talk. I have no need for your services." So I'd like to start talking about objections with talking about feelings. The need for approval is universal. So feelings of self-doubt, pessimism, disappointment are understandable, you know, when you're being refused the opportunity to promote your product to a potential client. But allowing these feelings to direct your behavior is a stumbling block to being an effective inside salesperson. Now, these feelings will arise when you take the no as a personal rejection. Sometimes we tell ourselves things such as, "I didn't say the right thing," or "If I were better at doing this, I could have kept him on the phone," or "Man, somebody else could have turned this prospect into a client." That's nonsense. The responses on the other end of the phone can trigger reactions that set you up for either hope or defeat, but the difference depends on the kind of message that your inner voice sends. One of the most helpful skills you can develop is depersonalizing the rejection. When you depersonalize a rejection, that process helps you change the distorted self-talk that occurs to more rational and realistic messages. And what I mean by more rational or realistic messages is, "Boy, he certainly may be having a rough day." Or, "She's never met me. It's not a rejection of me." You know, and that could be because the person you're contacting is having a bad day. Or, you know, maybe we simply never would have gotten that sale anyway. So it's not a big deal. It's not personal. It's just business. And in business, We have to deal with ups, we have to deal with downs. And when you get down and out because of a string of rejections, you can always pick yourself up by remembering you were not the target. What your prospect says is not a reflection on you. Okay? Maintain a sense of perspective. While the service you're selling and your call may be your top priority at the moment, it's probably not your prospect's top priority. They probably have many things that are ahead of you in their day. So we need to keep this in mind. So your worth is not solely determined on the approval of a prospect. Now, self-esteem is partially dependent on success in the world and the approval of important people in your life, but the most important person's approval is your own. Your most formidable asset is generally liking and accepting yourself, because no one can make you feel inferior without your permission. So when you're getting negative and abrasive responses, use these tips to overcome whatever you're running into to help you get through the rough calls. Okay, first, you want to ask yourself what kind of message your inner voice is relaying to you as a result of the response you got. Are you giving yourself negative back talk? Is it your fault? No, absolutely not. You can substitute that with more positive, rational statements. Okay? You do that when you acknowledge and identify your feelings about a negative response when it occurs. And you may overcome this by recalling past successes. Okay? Remember how effective and how successful you have been in previous presentations or previous calls. And remind yourself you will be successful again. And of course, handle the objection immediately and follow it with a close. For example, if your prospect states, "I'm using another agency," after you explain the benefits of using Lyons and Associates over the agencies that compete with us, follow it with a closing statement. What accounts do you have right now that you feel a personal visit from one of our licensed and bonded private investigators would collect the money? Okay? What accounts do you have right now that you feel a personal visit from one of our licensed and bonded private investigators would collect the money? The best way to handle an objection is to overcome it and go for the close. That's why I say objections are simply invitations. They're an invitation for us in our particular industry to qualify that prospect. Okay, so these are your opportunities. Okay, the most difficult person to sell anything to is the one who raises no objections. And I think I may have talked to some of you guys about that. I have a hard time selling if a prospect is not giving me objections over the phone. I have a hard time selling them because they're not giving me objections. They're not giving me the invitation to close them. because I don't know what's on his mind and I can't tailor my presentation to satisfy needs. So objections, man, bring them, welcome that. And to some inexperienced salespeople, this sounds ridiculous. Mike, what are you talking about? If they object, you want that? Yeah, I absolutely want it. Because they're going to give me clues to planning the next step in my presentation. I can turn it into a selling advantage. So when your prospect raises objections, you have handles to grip on. You have signposts to point the way to your important selling points. So when you get objections, man, that's an invitation, and they're a normal part of selling. So use them. Most objections, when they come to us, are invalid. Okay, now this is something else I need to point out in the psychology of pointing out that their objections are wrong. We don't want to inadvertently prove that the prospect themselves is wrong. And you don't have to take a human relations course to know that you won't win friends by proving that someone is incorrect or stupid. Most objections are raised simply by a fear of making a change in the way their accounts receivable are handled. In most cases, your prospect has already become very comfortable with the way things are handled, and they're not too receptive to someone who wants to rock the boat, cause them to have to make a change that may take him into what he considers uncharted waters. So, in most instances, overcoming objections is simply helping the prospect to overcome his or her fear of change. Show him changing can make Mr. Prospect's life easier. Make him look like a hero in the eyes of his superiors. We can do this. We have done it. We continue to do it. And at the same time, we're increasing the profitability of his company. That's why it's so important to overcome the objections that you will run into on a day-to-day basis, and to invite those objections, because they're invitations to close the deal. Okay? The major objections that you will run into will be the prospect uses other agencies, or the prospect collects all accounts in-house. I know you've all already heard these. Oh, I have an agency, I'm happy with them. We collect everything in-house. We're superheroes. We even collect the ones that are bankrupt. Yeah, right. And the checks in the mail, right? Other ones you'll hear is the prospect's company uses factoring, or they're too busy. I don't have any time to talk, or I don't have time to get the accounts ready. How about, I don't have any delinquencies. We never charge off or write off anything. Or how about the stall? I love this one. Can you send me some information? No, I can't send you some information. I'm not in the information sending business. I'm in the collection business. So you want some information? Let's talk about it. What information do you need? In other words, how many accounts are you going to be placing with us? Okay? Guys, make sure you're muted if you're not talking.
Mike,
Yes.
I was trying to ask you a question.
Oh, okay.
When you're talking to people and they want to see something from your company, and I've had this happen more than once. They want to see your company on the net. They want to be able to check it out before they really even talk to me further. That there is some valid times that happens.
Okay, and most of the time that is a brush off. If they need to see us on the internet, tell them Google Lyons and Associates. Right now, while you're on the phone, they can check our Better Business Bureau rating from our homepage.
With corporate people, you don't want to send stuff to them when they want to check out your company. Am I understanding you correctly?
If they do not let you qualify, don't send them jack.
Well, what if they qualify? That they don't, maybe let's say that they do their once a year, right? They review once a year as to who they're going to use, and then they have business there, but they want you to send them information. I had one today. He does once a year, and he wants to talk to me about business, but he also wants to check our company out because he's never used us. He has 3 other agencies he's using.
Okay.
So I sent him already. I feel like it's a legitimate question when sometimes when somebody wants to see what our company's about, for them to go to for them to have that information.
And Lori, doing
Yes,
it the way I'm telling you to will cause you to not sell some prospective clients. That is true. But it will also stop you from wasting your time on people that are giving you that information as a brush off, because that's what most of them do.
but if I have a letter that's already composed and all I'm doing is putting their email address in it and their name and their company, it takes
Okay.
me very little time.
How much time does it take you to call that person back?
Well, I mean, it depends. I mean, I can't answer that because each situation is different. Sometimes immediately, sometimes not.
Absolutely. Now, if you have 100 of those, how much time have you spent on it, and how much time have you spent calling them back? You can't answer that either, because you don't know how long it's going to take to spin your wheels.
Okay, well, I hear what you're saying. I do, but I've always had kind of issue with this since we started. I said to you before, I want to hear someone's first time close on the phone because I don't know how to develop a relationship and close any business in one call. I don't. And if I can hear it, then maybe I can have something to go on, that maybe I can do that. But the way I'm doing things right now is I'm trying to develop a relationship with these people, especially these big corporate people, because they don't usually move in one shot that I know of.
And I understand what you're saying. And Rodney, your mentor, should have gotten on the phone with you and made some presentations. And I believe Reiner, when you brought up this question last time, explained that sitting on the phone with somebody and waiting for them to make a one-call close is probably never going to happen. Okay, because
how is it a waste of time, Mike? How is it a waste of time if we are giving the client some information and we call them back? That gives us another reason to touch base with them, which sometimes it helps to develop that relationship between you and the client.
if you are actually in a situation that's not a brush off and you're developing a relationship, okay, and the bottom line is if they will not talk to you about their accounts, they're not going to place any business with you. Okay, and you can simply overcome this by asking them questions about what their need is so we can send them the correct information. Okay, the point I'm trying to make here is if you spend your time sending to brochures to people that you have not qualified, you're going to spend your time chasing people that have brushed you off. Thus, you won't make many sales doing that. You'll make some. You will make some. Some of them will come through. But I'm trying to teach you methods that are tried and are proven and have historically generated a lot of money for me personally as a salesman in this industry. So the point I'm making is it absolutely works. And if you want to try it your way, try it your way. Absolutely try it your way. And you may find yourself.
It's not that I'm saying you're wrong. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I haven't heard anybody do a single close like on business from a single call. I have not heard that. If that's something that is, you know, that you, I wish I could listen into one of your calls when you do it. Then I've just not heard it. The calls that I've made with Rodney have not, nothing has closed yet. So we've only been on a few calls. I give him so many, and then, you know, maybe we can't reach the person or whatever. But I've actually only listened to a couple of calls. I really would like to have some extra. That's how I learn the best. If I can hear somebody really doing that, then that teaches me.
Okay. Can I make a suggestion to you?
Yes, sir.
Instead of waiting for someone else to close a deal for you to listen to them to help you be successful,
I've already closed one.
okay. Well, then you know what a close sounds like. You've already closed.
But it wasn't on the first. It was not on the first contact. It was somebody I sent a letter to, and I called them back, and I closed them.
Okay. Well, we're talking tit for tat here, Lori, and we need to talk about overcoming objections.
Tell me this. What objection can I use when you're talking about overcoming factoring companies? Give me some ways to overcome that when a customer tells me that they use a factoring company.
I will absolutely do that in this forum. Okay? We will cover that. We're going to cover in this forum every objection. Well, just about it. I can't say every objection because there may be some that you'll run into that I don't cover here, but factoring is absolutely one of them. Okay? So let's go to the prospect uses other agencies. This is much more common than the factoring objection. Okay, because the majority of the businesses that you will be contacting will respond that they are using one or more collection agencies. Therefore, your first attempt or your first effort should be to qualify that prospect. What you need to know is how many accounts a month, a quarter, or on an annual basis do you turn over to your agencies? What is the average balance of these accounts? And when do you turn them over? The question of when the accounts are turned over can be very important. The when could be at a certain age of the account as it appears on the company's aging sheet, or it could be at a certain time of year. It could be at a time when a company ages their accounts. This all depends. This is something that if you read the first chapter in our training material, what you should know about credit, it will give you a little insight onto the whens and the wheres. For example, a company may have a policy that states at 90 days past due, the accounts go to an agency no matter what. Or it may be that they wait and place accounts at specific intervals throughout their year, regardless of the age of the account. On the other hand, some clients are seasonal, which means they only have accounts to place for collection at certain times each year. Whichever is the case, it's important to determine when they turn their stuff over. So if you can find out anything about their credit policy, you know, about the whens, and also ask about any accounts that may fall outside of that policy, and determine why they permitted the accounts not to be placed with an agency. For example, one of my clients sent me an account this morning that's from September of last year. Now, this client is a 90-day placer, and you know, we've got to go in and do some re-education. And typically, my personal clients, I have them on the stick. I've educated them to where I don't have to go through qualification normally. Yes, this is a situation where I do, but I have my personal clients to a point to where the business just shows up. 90 days old, it's on my desk and headed in to data entry to go into the system and go to one of our collectors. Okay, so what you want to realize when you're going in and qualifying a prospect that has used the objection, I use another agency, or I use two other agencies. Once you have qualified that prospect and there appears to be a need, some things you want to keep in mind is not to make derogatory marks or knock the competitor agencies. Okay, you can use psychology to basically tell them that, look, these agencies are never going to be as good as we are, but we want to make that their own determination. If you go in and knock an agency that a prospect is using, you have now implied that your prospect has made a poor decision. Okay? And that will get you into a hole that you'll never come out of. And on other agencies, we don't care who they're using. We don't even want to know. Doesn't matter. We can provide a better service. Does not matter who they are. So let's keep that in mind. Personally, what I like to do is compliment my prospect on the use of agencies. And some of you guys have heard me say this statement before. Every successful credit manager that I know uses a collection agency or two, see, I'm planting the seed there, or two, as an extension of their credit department. Guys, a compliment goes a long way in this situation. We can also attempt to find out the collection methods that are used by their agency, and we can find out whether or not that prospect is satisfied with them. And we can make the implication, we don't want to point the finger, but we can make the implication that most agencies out there are simply using the same techniques that that prospect uses. They're writing letters and they're making phone calls, many of them on an automated dialer system. Hi, this is Bob. I'm calling with whatever collection agency. about your past due account with so-and-so. The amount is, can you pay by a check by phone today? That's not a collection call. Our collectors put pressure on the debtor and make the debtor call them. We don't have to call debtors here. Well, I take that back. We have to make phone calls. But the point I'm making is our low-tech approach is going to be better than whoever they're dealing with. You'll want to emphasize our competitive edges. Of course, we use our PIs for personal contact, which means we can reach out and touch a debtor company anywhere in the country and explain the benefit of this, which is a much higher yield and faster collection. Okay, they're also going to get their money faster because we remit faster. When we get a PTA payment, that stands for Payment to Agency, we remit the client's money directly out of our client trust account when the check clears. We don't move it into an interest-bearing account for 30 days and make a few extra bucks off of their money. We send them their money. We don't hold on to it. Okay, and guys, look around. No one else has a remit upon clearance policy. Most of them are not going to tell you their policy because they remit at 30 days or 45 days. You may also explain the benefit of having the ability to access their reports on their accounts, which means not just status reports. They can go in and read the debtor notes, the investigative notes. They can view any attachments that we have placed onto the file. There's even a litigation section in there that shows assets and everything when we're in litigation against a company. And they can access this information 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, which means they don't have to wait for their account executive to send it, which, guys, this helps you because you don't have to get it together and send it to them, and it helps the client because they don't have to wait for it. At most agencies, the account executive is on the phone selling, and when a client calls for an update on an account, that account executive puts them on the back burner in many cases, and they don't get the information they need when they need it. 24/7 online access remedies this completely because our access is fully transparent. It's not just the status report. They can read the notes. They can even see what our yield is for them. And guys, they don't have this at other agencies because the average agency only yields about 15% of what is placed with them. We want our clients to know what we're yielding them, so it's on the reports. We want them to know what we're yielding them because it's the sale after the sale. Hey, look how fantastic we are. Your last guy was yielding you 12%, and we're yielding you 52%. Okay, do the math there. Additionally, their third-party agency costs can be reduced by us collecting the collection fees from the debtor. We get the fees and the interest paid on about half of the accounts that we collect, which helps our clients cover their expenses. Now, we have some clients that it has never costed them a dime to place accounts with us because we've collected every penny that they've placed with us, every bit of fees, and every bit of interest. Matter of fact, Rick, who's on here, has a few clients that have yields as high as 120 and 130%. And some of these guys, Rick has a couple of them that have actually received more money back than they placed because we collected their fees and their interest. And that is outstanding. Something we want to do when we're discussing why we're better than whatever agency, we want to have a number of sources for the prospect to use sometimes. If they're a big company that uses multiple agencies, emphasize to the prospect that you're not asking them to give up their present agency. Because we already know from historical data that every prospect that has had us compete over time against another agency, we have earned that prospect's complete portfolio of business. Okay? So we don't have to go in and hammer them, hey, quit using your other agency and use us. No, let's compete. Actually, I take that back. Let's dominate. Okay, we don't want to compete. We're dominators. That's what we do. So you want to ask that prospect to give you a fair test. Give us a section of their accounts, a cross-section of accounts as they come across his desk. You know, look, play some with us, play some with the other guy. All we want is a fair test to show what we can do. Okay, in most cases, the prospect is going to try to force accounts on you that are more than a year old, accounts that have been placed with other agencies and are uncollected, accounts that they've determined uncollectible, their biggest headache. Now, we can take these accounts too, but we want a fair test. Okay, we can help him with that other stuff, but we need a fair test if we're going to properly dominate. Okay? And what does he have to lose if he places these accounts with you? He has nothing to lose and much to gain. Now, what you may also want to pay attention to, if you take only their biggest headaches and you don't pitch them on giving you a fair test, you have something to lose because these accounts are difficult to collect and they do not represent a fair test of what we can collect. And we do not want to be judged on these types of accounts, the old ones and the out of business and the skips. We don't want to be judged on this. We want a fair test. Okay, and a fair test is giving us a portion of what they're giving the other agency and a cross-section by balance, by geographical location of accounts, so there can be a true comparison between what we can do and what the other agencies are doing now for that prospect. And stand firm on this regard and you'll get it. Don't be lulled into just taking any type of accounts. We want what Lyons and Associates considers prime accounts. And if you do take his old accounts or second placements, make sure you charge an appropriate rate for that type of business. Now, sometimes your prospect may not really understand what our private investigators do, what a visit to the debtor's place of business will do regarding the collection for the client. When they don't understand this, this is to promote prompt collection of the debt. And remember, the primary function of the prospect you're talking to is the extension of credit rather than the collection of past due accounts. That's what credit managers do. They extend credit. So some of these guys are decent collectors. Some of them aren't. So with this, you'll want to explain how we can do a better job of collecting their past due accounts by using picture words and picture phrases. Okay, paint a picture, and then of course ask for the placements. Laurie was mentioning building a rapport or a relationship with some of the people she's talking to before she goes in for the close. This is absolutely a good thing. Okay, this is not necessarily a one-call close. Yes, you want to see if you can close on the first call, but that is rarely ever the case. So a point I want to make, if enough rapport has been established, ask the prospect to look at his aging. Try to get him to tell you the number of accounts that are on the list that are not being handled by agencies. How long have they been on the list? Why haven't they been collected? Try to get them to give you those accounts so we can begin working on them immediately. I mean, that certainly makes sense. So when a prospect is talking to you about using other agencies, find out how many agencies do you use? Why do you use agencies? How do you decide which agencies to use? What do you expect of these agencies? What do you like best about your agencies? What determines which agencies get what accounts? How did you originally decide which one to use? What criteria did you use? If they could improve, what would you want from them? If you were going to add another agency, what would you be looking for? How do you think your collections would improve if you could afford to see your debtors face to face? And remember, they're not paying us any upfront money. It's all on contingency. So that's kind of a trick question there, because they can afford to see their debtors face to face. What methods do these other agencies use to collect your money? How would the right agency make your life happier with your collection responsibility? When do you turn your accounts over? How many accounts do you turn over to agencies each year? How much do you expect collected as a percentage or as a yield? Guys, this is important. What do you expect to be collected? What is your greatest concern right now about your accounts receivable? Or what is your greatest concern right now about the accounts you turn over? We also would like to know, how does your agency report back to you? Do you get status reports every month? Or do you have online access? If you have online access, is it transparent? These are important things. Sometimes, also, a prospect will simply tell you that they're using other agencies because they want to get rid of you. They want you off of the phone. I'm happy with my present agency. Get off of my phone. That's what they're saying. So keep in mind the questions I just mentioned, and always remember, if you make derogatory comments about the other agencies that they're using, you're implying that that credit manager is a fool for using them. And that is guaranteed to make them defend their other agency. Now, we need to talk about the prospect that collects everything in-house. In most cases, your prospect is using this to get you off of the phone. That prospect feels that if you believe that he collects all of his accounts in-house, you will believe that there is no need for our services. Don't necessarily take this at face value. Give him a compliment. Your in-house collectors are collecting all of your accounts. That's fantastic. Ask them for advice. Man, what are you guys doing to make yourself so successful? I mean, that's what I do. I put them on the spot. Because most of the time when I use that, they tell me, oh, well, you know, we don't collect everything. You know, we've got a couple here. Oh, okay. Tell me about those. Tell me about the couple that you have. Let's talk about those. So that brings you right into a qualification, okay? And then you can ask them, on average, how many 90-plus accounts do you normally carry on your aging sheet? What are your write-offs each year? What's the approximate amount of accounts on your aging sheet right now that have not been paid according to the terms of the sale? That's good stuff to know, because these types of questions will determine if there's a need for our services. Then, of course, you'll want to ask some questions to obtain information on who does the collecting in-house. Is it professional collectors or salespeople? And guys, just so you know, the best professional collectors work for collection agencies. They work for third-party agencies that pay them on commission because they make a lot more money that way. So keep that in mind when you're asking who does the collecting. Okay? Try to get a feel for how effective their methods are and what methods they use. Also, get the credit manager to tell you what percentage of delinquent accounts his or her company can live with. Hey, what's your acceptable loss? Are you within these limits? Because if they're not, this is your opportunity. It's knocking. Hello, I'm opportunity. Let me in. Because Lyons and Associates can help reduce that credit loss, even if they're within their acceptable limits. What can you do with more money? Everyone has a different answer for that, but it's all positive. Okay, and sometimes it's expensive to employ in-house collectors if they don't have people specially designated for collecting the past due accounts. Sometimes when they don't have people specially designated, some of your prospects' time is going to be needed to collect those accounts. So we can save that prospect time. and let that prospect focus on extending credit and keeping up with the current customers instead of worrying about the guy that's been past due for 90 days. Because a credit manager's function is to extend credit, to develop credit policies, and to make sure that their DSO is within an acceptable range. Because when that credit manager is having to collect accounts, his or herself, that credit manager is taking time away from approving credit requests made by their sales department. This could get them into trouble with the sales department or his superiors, because new sales are important. That's the lifeblood of any company, new sales. Okay? The more accounts that prospect is able to collect through us, the less he may have to have the salesperson collect the account. I'm sure you've heard of some people that send their salespeople out to collect the money. Salespeople are salespeople. They're not collectors. The sales guy wants to make his customer happy. He doesn't want to hammer him for the money. He wants this customer to buy again. Also, by us collecting the accounts, he can increase the number of customers their salespeople can sell to. Explaining these facts alone will gain him prestige among the sales force as well as his superiors. And guys, we already know that credit departments and sales departments do not always get along. In some companies, there is an enormous amount of friction between sales and credit because of things exactly like this. So the best thing to do is see if you can get the prospect to take out his aging list. Find out what accounts are seriously delinquent and ask for those accounts for placement. Okay? Now, some of them that may not be to that date may have red flags. So we want to ask that prospective client about the red flags. Okay? Red flags are if they've heard rumors that the debtor's having problems, that's a red flag. If the debtor company keeps requesting invoices when it's already been sent, that's a problem. Or the debtor's never in when you call them. How convenient. That's a problem. Credit inquiries from other suppliers. Guess what? He's shopping. If he gets somebody else, he may not pay you on time. Sometimes an unusual request for a credit limit increase can be a red flag. If it's a drastic increase, a lot of times a credit professional will see a request for a credit limit increase than a slower payment cycle for that customer. That's a red flag. Sometimes they will see a dispute over terms that's sudden. The account's 60 days past due, and all of a sudden the customer has a problem with the product. That's a red flag. You know, if they're talking about the quality or the amount of the product that was shipped or the service that was issued. If that's suddenly raised for the first time after the account has become delinquent, that's a huge red flag. And then, of course, there are the obvious things, you know, like broken promises, NSF payments, or a blatant refusal to set a date for payment or to agree to a payment schedule. Those are, you know, obvious things. So when we get that prospect to carefully study their accounts to see if there are any warnings, any red flags that are on any of them. Placing those accounts now is the thing to do. It will not only collect more money more quickly, but something like that, when there's red flags, that can reduce that prospect's number of bankrupt accounts. Because when companies begin running into these situations, some of these, not all of them, some of them are headed straight for dissolution, bankruptcy. Do I have any questions about the last two objections that I went over, the collecting accounts in-house or the clients using other agencies? What do I have on that thus far? Okay. If there's nothing, I will move into, oh wait, we got some chat messages over here. Okay. All right, the prospect is too busy and has no time to talk. Whatever the case is, you will run into this type of situation. I don't have time to talk. It may be true, or it just may be one more way of trying to blow you off and get off the telephone. Whatever the case is, acknowledge the fact that the prospect is busy. Explain. Most successful people are. I'm busy as well. But a company's profits are important business. And our service can improve your cash flow and make your job easier. Okay, now this is a hard way in. That's when somebody's busy, they're not going to like to hear that. If you're comfortable using it, use it. You'll get in the door. I'm comfortable using it, and I get in the door. Sometimes I get my rear end handed to me when I say that. A lot of times I don't. Sometimes I get business from it. So if it works sometimes, hey, if it can improve your closing ratio, turn the wheels. Make it work. Sometimes you can explain, I had a similar situation with another prospect. And I explained to them what I could do for them and how we do things differently at Lyons and Associates. So that prospect made time to listen to me. That's a softer way in. If the prospect still insists that he doesn't have time to talk, don't push the issue. Don't hammer him. Just let him know you have a service from which he will reap many benefits, and ask when it would be more convenient to get back with him. Now, if you have just a brush off, don't necessarily send a brochure. Just make sure you set a time to call them back. And Lori was asking about sending brochures to people that you haven't qualified, and I say don't do it. I don't personally do it, but sometimes you will run into situations where you have someone who's legitimately too busy to talk to you, and you will want to send a brochure. If you do, send it. And make sure you call that prospect back. If they blow you off again, get rid of them. I simply don't want you to waste your time, because your time is very important. Okay, we have a service that our clients reap many benefits from, and if we have someone that's blowing us off, we need to make sure that we're taking our time to offer this service to other people that are not blowing us off. Also, when a prospect is busy, let them know how easy and simple it is for us to get started collecting their accounts. Let them know that all you need is the debtor's name, address, telephone number, the balance, date of last purchase, and the principal to be contacted for us to get to work. And then we can send the collection agreement over. And when that prospect gets time, they can sign it and send it back. But we'll get started working for them now. And I do have a placement checklist in our documentation that can be viewed, which will give you the questions that need to be asked, but we can condense that down to name, address, telephone number, balance, date of last purchase, principal to be contacted. That way we can get in there, figure out what the situation is, and get to work. Now, Lori, another one for you. Factoring. I know you've been waiting for this. Sorry to make you wait for it. But some...
All ears.
better things come to those who wait, Lori. Guys, during your calls, you're going to bump into prospects that factor some of their accounts. Okay, before I get into this, I need to have some water. Imagine that. I'm actually drinking water today. But don't let that fool you. I have my coffee too. Okay. Most companies that use factoring are going to be manufacturing companies, particularly that manufacture heavy equipment like farm implements, trucks, transportation equipment or similar equipment. Also, there's a lot of a lot of factoring that takes place in the garment industry, as well as the transportation industry. And transportation something we're hitting hard because, well, we make a lot of money off of it. We're very good at it. We know it, and we're simply the best. So, I mean, that's a good reason for us to pay attention to that. The reason your manufacturers use factors is so they can improve their immediate cash flow to manufacture more inventory. The factors will either discount or factor the account at the time the credit is extended, and once that occurs, the factoring company pays the prospect company a discounted price for the account. Okay, from that point on, the prospect no longer has any liability on the account. It now belongs to the factoring company. So in this situation, the prospect gets money immediately from the sale and does not suffer any loss in the event the account becomes delinquent. That loss is sustained by the factoring company in some cases. This is only true when the factoring is done without recourse. Okay, there's also recourse factoring, so this is non-recourse we're talking about. Okay, when factoring is done with recourse, this simply means that if the account defaults in payment, the prospect must repurchase that account from the factoring company and attempt to collect the money themselves. Okay, now the main thing to find out is whether it's recourse or non-recourse. Most of them will be recourse. Most of the time your defaults will happen because of the size of the account or the discount required to be paid, or because the prospect's buyers simply were not a good credit risk. In the instance when a prospect claims that he's factoring accounts, first try to determine if the financing arrangements are on a recourse or non-recourse basis. Obviously, if it's a recourse basis, they have accounts, and ask them, are there any accounts that have been charged back to you or that you have been required to repurchase by your factor? If there have been, ask for those accounts to be placed immediately with you. And additionally, in most instances, actually in every instance I've run into, the prospect has had some accounts that have not been factored. Because for a prospect to factor accounts, the factoring company has to determine whether or not that company, that debtor company, is a good credit risk for them to factor the paper. So in just about every instance, your prospect will have some accounts that have not been factored because the factor deemed them to not be a good credit risk, of course, in the mind of the factoring company. Sometimes your prospect will tell you non-recourse just to get rid of you. Let me explain something about non-recourse. A factoring company is only going to factor in a non-recourse perspective if there is an extremely low risk. Okay, they're not going to just give out money. Say, here you go, buddy. Great being your friend. I enjoyed our golf game this weekend. Not going to happen. It has to be an extremely low risk. If they tell you non-recourse, act genuinely surprised. Tell them, I'm really surprised at that. Most of our clients who factor their accounts tell me they have difficulty factoring some of their accounts. I'm surprised you don't have some of the same problems. Ask them a little bit about their credit policies. Man, what are they doing that's so fantastic that the factoring company sees them as no risk? Man, there's the risk, it's like this big, man. So we're going to give you money on all of your paper. Non-recourse. Don't worry about it. And, you know, if that doesn't get you some accounts, there's nothing more you can do. Chalk it up as a no-need prospect. Get rid of them. Ask them for some referrals and move on to your next call. On the other hand, factoring companies may need our services too. That's right, factoring companies have to collect the money they factor. Oh my God, what an idea. Get the name of the factoring company and contact them. Just be aware that the factoring company will always attempt to negotiate a lower than standard rate, and don't fall for it, because we're better. We produce higher yields. Talk to them about yields and convince them that we're better. Lori, any more questions about factoring?
Yes, I do have a question. I ran into a situation where I was calling someone yesterday, and I was following back up with them, and instead of it being the transportation company, a factoring company answered the phone, and I had to leave a message. Can a factoring company, because I don't know the answer to this, so I'm asking, and it may be a stupid question, I don't know, but can a factoring company take over a business like a bank can take over a business?
It is possible through the Uniform Commercial Code, but it's very unlikely. Um, that factor's name, that factor's phone number may have simply ended up in our database because that was the.
But I talked to these people before. Like the number I called was a valid number, and I spoke to someone. It was a transportation number. That's why I was so confused, because it's the same number I called, but now it's a factoring company answering.
Okay. Did you ask the factoring company for business?
I couldn't. I left my message though. It was a voicemail.
Okay. Well, let's see if we can get some business from the factoring company. If you need a reference, if you need factoring companies for references, I have factoring companies for clients, so I'll be more than happy to give you some factors for references. And
can you give me one now?
I'm sorry?
Can you give me one now?
No.
Okay.
We're on the air.
Oh, that's right.
Just call me, Lori. I'll give it to you.
There you go.
Okay, we'll do.
Rod has the solution. And we're not just a collection agency. We provide solutions.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's talk about that prospect that has no need. I don't have any delinquencies and I never write anything off. I love that one, man. That's one of my favorites. Most of the time that's a ploy to simply get you off the phone. Prospect is trying to make you believe there's no need. So you'll back off, hang up, and he can go on about his business. But I live in the real world. The fact is, that is extremely rare. Any company selling on an open accounts basis to distributors, retailers, whoever, is going to have write-offs. Okay, this is the real world. If a company is selling on open accounts, especially to distributors and retailers, and they tell you they don't have delinquent accounts, sure you don't. Even if the prospect sells strictly on COD or requires cash before delivery, he may have an occasional NSF check. Let's not forget about that. Now, you will occasionally run into the prospect that only has one or two customers, or they have a handful of customers that always pay promptly. That does happen. Okay? So they're not always full of it, but most of the time they are. In the absence of this, a company has to sell on some kind of credit plan to remain competitive. Okay, so always take the response of no delinquencies or no write-offs with a grain of salt. By probing further, most likely you're going to find out that there are delinquencies. In this, you want to express surprise because your experience has indicated that most businesses in whatever the prospect's industry is who sell on open accounts have some percentage of delinquency. Okay? So you want to ask them about their percentage of delinquency. What percent of your annual sales are you writing off? You can also find out the types of companies that the prospect sells to. It will give you an indication of whether or not he or she has delinquencies or charge-offs. Try to get the idea of the volume of open account sales or credit sales, because delinquencies are a natural consequence of high volume credit sales. Let the prospect know you know this. You're not being a know-it-all. You're letting them know that you're educated in the field that you work in. Look, I know my business. I know that delinquencies are a natural consequence of credit sales. There is no way around it. Also ask if there are any accounts right now that have not paid according to the term of the sale. You know, even if they're 30 days overdue, 60 days overdue, whatever they are, if they haven't paid according to the terms of the sale, ask him. If he gives you a number, ask him about those accounts. The point of this is to make your prospect understand that you're not naive when it comes to the credit business. We're the pros in this. Make it be known that you find it incredible that a company of his size does that much credit business and has no delinquencies or write-offs. And if they still insist, move on. When you're gathering this information, you'll want to ask questions like, how have sales been lately? Because if their sales are down, you know, if they're about to go out of business, maybe they don't have any open accounts. Also ask them, how do you account for your success, man? That is fantastic. One I like to ask, okay, so you mean you don't sell on open accounts? Oh, well, yeah, sure, we sell on open accounts. So how do you account for your success, man? I would love to hear this. And then, of course, ask them, what do you do about the accounts you can't collect? Have you ever considered using agencies? Do you have NSF checks? What do you do about it? Any accounts with red flags? We're back to the red flags. Broken promises, not returning calls, ignoring your demand letters or emails. Those are red flags. You can also ask the number of accounts that have gone bankrupt in the past year. And ask that credit manager, does this concern you? Do you think maybe it might be a good idea to start placing your accounts for collection sooner? And what you want to do is really confirm the fact that the prospect legitimately has no need and that this objection is not a ploy simply to get you off of the phone. And this can be done using the tips I just mentioned. You can also ask, you know, what kind of product they sell if you don't already know. Where do they sell? Is it locally, regionally, nationally? Who do you sell to? And of course, as stated before, their volume of sales. And the point in that is, if they have a large volume of credit sales, if they sell to a number of customers, if they sell regionally or nationally, they have some delinquencies. And the prospect's objection of no need is completely invalid. So never take that as an absolute. Probe, inquire tactfully, of course, and satisfy yourself that there's actually no need for this prospect and move on. And of course, if you do determine there's a need, sell, qualify, close. And if you're unsuccessful selling it, ask them for a referral. I love to ask people for referrals. Most of them won't give them to you, but every once in a while they say, oh, I do know a guy who could use you, and I'll give you his name and number. It's amazing. The stall. You got to love the stall. Sometimes this prospect just has the fear of making a poor decision or moving into uncharted waters. They want you to think, they want to think about it. They want to talk to somebody about it. And the best stall of all, can you send me some information? I would love to see your brochure. I'm interested, but I'm busy right now. Can you send me a brochure? Man, this is the best stall of all. Because it happens so often, and as salespeople, we continuously get sucked into that. Oh, we asked for some information. You've got to distinguish the tire kickers from the buyers. And sometimes you're going to get tire kickers anyway. It happens, but when it happens, it happens. So some of the things that will cause a credit professional to not make a quick decision, sometimes they're simply not secure in their job position, which leads to procrastination. I know we've run into some of these. Sometimes this person may need reinforcement to rationalize the decision that they really want to make. Sometimes this person has approved credit and is reluctant to admit that the account can't be collected. We run into this a lot. Credit manager made a poor decision, or maybe they made a good decision, and they're standing by their good decision. But they refuse to believe that it can't be collected because they believe in their credit approval process. Sometimes they just fear making a poor decision, or they don't see a benefit to themselves by making a decision to place the accounts with you. When you encounter this prospect, compliment him on the fact that he doesn't rush into decisions. Man, this guy's a good decision maker. He doesn't rush into decisions. It's a good thing that you consider all the factors before making decisions, Mr. Prospect. What do you look for in an agency? Turn that into a question. Compliment, question. Let him know that he's the type of person that you like to do business with, because he stands behind his decisions. He doesn't rush into them. He takes the time to think about them, but of course do it without being patronizing. On the other hand, let him know that putting the decision off may cause him to lose the chance to collect some of those delinquent accounts immediately. He doesn't want to lose that chance. And use an example of another company that delayed a decision and they regretted it. If you don't have a story, get one from somebody. We have plenty. I know I have a million stories. If he's concerned about the cost, there's no obligation. They don't pay anything unless we collect the account. So let's get started on a few right now. By using probing questions, you can find the real reason why he puts off making decisions. It might be he just uses another agency. and he's happy with what they're doing. But you want to get to that real objection. And if the prospect wants some information, let them know. You're happy to do so, because we are more than happy to send that prospect a brochure. We just need to make sure that we let that prospect know that in order to send the right material, we need to know something about his situation. We go in and we qualify. I'd be more than happy to send you a brochure, Mr. Prospect. First, I need to know a few things so I can send you the correct information. How many accounts do you turn over to an agency each year? What's their average balance? At what aging do you turn them over? If the prospect does not want to give you this information, they're probably not going to place accounts with you. And of course, you can let them know things like, you know, what you read in the brochure is going to catch your interest, and you're going to want to do business with us. That's an absolute, because what we have is the best. And of course, we're not going to put anything bad in our brochure. You know, it's all going to be some feature, some benefit. Sometimes you can turn this into a sale by saying, oh, I'll be happy to send you a brochure. Tell me about your accounts. If they let you qualify. In the meantime, I'd like to take the opportunity to prove what I've been saying about our ability to collect more quickly through the use of our private investigator network and our low-tech approach. Refer him to his agent sheet. Ask about the problem accounts that have been bugging him. Maybe I can handle a couple of these right now for you. You know, if he doesn't want to turn them over right now, let him know that you'll be calling to get these accounts for placement. And if you get that prospect to describe some of the accounts that he or she is concerned about, and you set a time to call him back to get the accounts after they have reviewed your brochure. In other words, get a promise. Look, am I just arbitrarily sending you information, or are we going to do a deal? That's what the real question is. You don't want to ask it like that, but you can get the prospect's promise. You can also find out if online access to our system to track his placements would make his job easier. And while he's on the phone with you, direct him to our website, have him log in with the demo creditor thing, and walk him through our client access system. Show your prospect how your prospect will have the ability to pull status reports, money reports, read the collection notes, performance reports, even place accounts. This way you can engage your prospect. And of course, if everything else fails, you know, if you can't get the promise, but you've qualified and you see that it's really not a tire kicker, send the brochure via email. And then follow up with them at whatever the appropriate date is. And, you know, of course, mention to that prospect, you'll be calling back on this date. And that way, that prospect will have time to read the brochure. And also, this is a good thing. Mr. Prospect, when you read our brochure, select a handful of accounts, 5, 6, maybe 10 or a dozen accounts that you would like us to handle immediately. And when I call you back on so-and-so date, if you could have those ready, that would save us both some time. That way we can get to work for you immediately. And of course, make sure you have a specific date and time when that prospect can expect your call. And it will give you a much better chance of getting those accounts on that second call. That way, that prospect knows when you call back, you're expecting him to have read the brochure and to have any questions ready for you that he wants answered, and for him to have the accounts ready to discuss and to place. Do I have any questions so far? Okay, I think that unless you guys want to keep going forward, we can make the rest of this a part 2, because we've only covered a few of the objections, and we've been on here about an hour and a half. If you guys want to keep moving forward, I can go forward, but sometimes it's better to take what you've learned and put it into use, or and that way we can come back to this on next Tuesday, or well on Tuesday, and do the second part of the objections. Any pointers, comments, questions?
Well, I have a suggestion, Mike. Maybe Cookie could read the book Secrets of Closing Sales. That's a good book to read and get more informative, because lots of times when people are asking for information, it is a stall. And what I usually like to do, excuse me, is when they ask for information, I'll make a lighthearted, repeated question back. I'll say, "Oh, you're wanting information from me? Wow, now you're not saying that just to get rid of me now, are you?" And I'm just throwing that back because I like to know what the real reason is, because I'll say, many times I have provided information in the past and it just created more curiosity and questions. While we're here on the phone, allow me to answer any question you may have. What is really stopping you from placing your business with me today? Is it you're fearful of making a bad decision? Or are you not sure about Lyons and Associates? Or are you questioning my credibility? What is the real reason? And those techniques are called a smoke out. You want to smoke out the real objection from your prospective client. And sometimes they're real, many times they're not, because everybody is fearful of making a bad decision. And, sometimes when I'm calling, I'll get somebody when I'll say, "Well, can you tell me what is the average debt that is owed to you?" "Oh, I don't like to share that information," as if I could peek over the phone and see exactly what the name of the account is and what the amount of money is. I mean, it's a stupid objection, but they think that that's something that I'm going to buy, and I'll say, I can understand your hesitancy, but I'm here to help you. If you're not willing to help yourself, how can you expect me to help you? And, it gets very real for me, and it's not always successful. Understand one important thing. All these methods are tools to put in your tool belts. There's nothing 100% guaranteed in selling, except in betting, like at horses or dogs, you have first, second, and third. In sales, you either got the sale or you didn't get the sale. So you don't play second or third. But we have an opportunity which is a little different in this industry versus other industries that I've been in sales, is that we have the opportunity to follow up if we take good notes and put down and leave, begin where we left off on our follow-up. Because I was in sign sales directly to the business for many years, and we had a policy, no callbacks. If you got called, it got caught on a callback, you were fired from the company because they believed that made you a weak salesperson. And if you couldn't close the deal while you were there, you weren't going to get the business anyway. And the nice thing is that deposit that they wrote, that was my commission, and I could go cash the check immediately. So a lot of truth in that. So here we have the opportunity to follow up. And, I wouldn't get so hung up on that one call close. I mean, it's great if it happens. It happened for me, but everything was lined up. You got to understand, everything lined up where I caught that customer at a point of need. I addressed his concerns, and I had to get some additional information from Mike, forwarded on to the customer, and he was kind of hem-hawing a little bit. It's just part of his nature. But I said, "Come on, man, we gotta move on this, or are we gonna take the lazy approach, or are we gonna get serious about this? This is a business, is it not, or is it a hobby?" I mean, I ask blunt questions that other people are fearful to ask, but I've never had anybody hit me, never had anybody threaten me. I did have one guy threaten me with an axe handle years ago, but I won't tell you how that occurred, but it was my error. And, you just got to be real serious and ask a lot of pointed questions. And if you made a mistake, it's not the end of the world. There's more opportunity, but we have to create that opportunity by asking good, smart, pointed questions and not buy into their responses. Because, I mean, if you had, Lori, $1 million today hanging out there, if Mike said, if you could secure an account today and I could give you $1 million, I can assure you, you would have a different approach on the phone immediately after we hung up from this Hangouts than just going out try to secure business. You would do everything in your power to secure a client, I can assure you. And
well, I can assure you I try everything I can to secure a client because it's just my nature. I'm
sure
my
do.
nature to do the best I can do. So let me assure you.
Yeah, and I can tell that about you just in how you speak, that you try to do everything in your power. But here's the thing. Some of us have a little more experience in our tool belts than others. And what I would encourage you to do, and maybe Rodney is supportive of this, is to go on YouTube and pull up videos on secrets of closing sales over the phone. There's a lot of good material out there. And Grant Cardone is a very good sales trainer, and he does a lot of sales over the phone. He works with a lot of car dealers and auto salespeople, as well as realtors and different salespeople throughout the country, most of it done over the phone. I would watch a lot of Grant Cardone's information. It's good. And he asks a lot of pointed questions.
I love that guy, man.
Yeah, he's good. He's very good.
Okay, I'll look on YouTube for that.
Yeah.
I think for me it's not necessary. I don't have a problem asking for the business at all. I'm learning this business. This is not a business that I know backward and forward. That's where my problem is, and I'm trying to learn as much as I can, as fast as I can, because I do want to be successful.
That. I don't know a lot about the collection business either. I never had a background. All I know is if somebody owes me money, I'm like a pit bull. I'm going to get my money,
What I was going to say, Lori, is there isn't anyone that I see out there that's producing better stats than you are right now, and you've gotten in on closes and had more possible closes than anybody that's other than Rick and a couple others. You're doing a fantastic job. So you've really got it down. Every customer that I've talked to and every close I've come in on with you, they've had nothing but kudos and respect, and they've said great things about you, and you've been on listening in on all that yourself. So I think you can rest assured that you're doing a great job. So I wouldn't fault you in very many areas at all, because I've also listened to what they've had to say, and even when I've heard you speaking, it's you've got it down to a pretty good science. I think with the collection business, one of the things that is probably the most important thing to hold on to is the fact that these people are sitting in the same office 8 hours a day, and they're, basically got people like us calling them 2 or 3 times, up to 2 or 3 times a day, 2 or 3 times a week. Sometimes they're only once a month, but more importantly, it's very important not to have the same kind of approach, and that's what I hear from a lot of them that I do call myself. I hear the same thing over and over and over again, but your approach was a little different. And that's the key, it's not to get caught up into, because most marketing concepts don't fit. When it comes to qualifying works in all areas and all arenas. So if you're going to key in on any of the things that Cardone or a few of the others have to offer, it's like Mike keeps honing in on, is qualify, and you've gotten a lot better at that.
Sounds like to me that you might be a little too critical of yourself.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. I think that Lori is doing a fantastic job, and she's tenacious. She's tenacious from what I am seeing. She's getting in there and she's doing the deal, and I understand it's frustrating because this is a difficult business to break into, Lori. A lot of people do not make it, but
I'll make it. I just need the time and the experience. I know I will.
I know you're going to make it. I know you're going to make it. When I see your stats on the work logs and everything, and I hear the questions that you're asking, I smell money. And guys, ask Rick what that means when I say I smell money. Well, Rick's not here anymore, but
You gotta step out and go somewhere.
yeah. If I say I smell money, that means money's coming. I have a very, very, very good instinct for the money. I guess it's a good thing I'm in the collection business. So what else we got, gentlemen and lady?
Well, I'm going to bow out, Kemosabe. Been very informative, but not that I enjoy your company less, but I've got to run. The doctor wants to X-ray my arm again, so.
Okay. For
I'll be back in touch with you later.
Okay, for the mentors hangout, you were talking about Sunday. You, myself, Ronner, and Rick, we just need to set a time where we can all get on there and go over some things. And I'd also like to have us go over, before we get into discussion on it, let's all of us have some points that we want to discuss. That way we can go in there and get this to where it's profitable for all of us, to where we get the most out of our new people coming on, and they can get the most out of us. That's definitely something that's going to be very important. So if you guys have some ideas for discussion, because I'm gonna go into this. I'm gonna have a couple of ideas down, but for the rest of it, I'm gonna wing it and just talk about what works for me, and you guys can talk about
what time.
What's that?
I was gonna say what time Sunday. What time Sunday?
We need to figure that out, because I had initially sent an email. That's the one I that said reply all, so all of us could kind of collaborate on when we're going to get together.
Well, if as long as Rick or Rainier doesn't have a problem with Sunday, I certainly don't. I'd be available from 9. I can do it anytime 9 Sunday until I'd say 2 o'clock in the afternoon would be okay. Whatever we shoot in there. Do you have a time frame that you want to confine it to, or?
Oh, I don't care. I work anytime, Rodney.
I know you're a workaholic like me.
It doesn't matter, man.
I'm totally open on my schedule.
Okay. And
I think 10 o'clock or 10, around 10 o'clock would be good. 9,
let's keep in mind that 10 o'clock our time is 8 o'clock Reiner's time. So, Reiner, how early do you get up, buddy?
Well, it all depends how motivated I am.
Okay. So let's make it a little later, 11 or maybe even
that'd be good. 9 o'clock my time would be an excellent time.
9 o'clock your time. Yeah, because I mean I don't want to drag you out of bed on a Sunday morning to come have a managers meeting.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Yeah.
Well, you want to make it afternoon? That's fine too. I mean, it's.
Well, it'll be 9 his time will be 11 a.m. for us, Rodney, and it'll be noon for Rick. So let's make it tentative, and I'm going to say either 11 a.m. Central or noon Central, and we'll see. We have to see what Rick's availability is, and we can get him there and get it done, and work towards further success, man.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, Friday night, Saturday night, that's the only time I'm not available for anything, so I'm good to go the rest of the week.
Awesome. Well, let's get it done. And Reiner, I like what you were saying about no second and third place. If you're not first, you're last.
Yeah, I mean that's how it is in sales, man. There's no second and third place,
That's it, man. That's it.
I'm out of here.
All right.
Hey, have a good one.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. I'll talk to you guys when I talk to you, and I'll set another one up for next Tuesday, and we'll go over the rest of the objections we run into.
Sounds good, Mike.
All right. You guys have a great day, and you need me, call me.